Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. We get together most weekday mornings at this time, 8 o'clock Central, to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, discuss the grant, and support each of you. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a different turn. Before we get started talking about the grant and the package and how we can help entrepreneurs get funding and how we can help you make money by teaching people, let's start with the topic of people. You and I are in the people business. And what does that mean? Well, it can be challenging. Sometimes it can be frustrating. It's certainly rewarding to help people, but it's not always easy. So what do we know about working with people? First of all, a lot of people think that they're smarter than what they are. So they sometimes will have a frame of reference that is flawed, that's inaccurate, but they're kind of convinced. So a big part of what you and I need to do is to educate, because we can't just tell them this is the way that it is. This is how to get a fundable business. Human nature is to push back sometimes on that. But if we educate them, now they have new information to consider. So as we're on the topic of people, I encourage you to consider, and we're here on ChapmanLoanProgram.org is shared with you, consider teaching people, because if you teach them, then they can come to their own conclusion. Now, we're only going to talk about the truth and reality and real topics, real concepts, real processes, but teach them. What else do we know about people? Well, a good number of people either own or want to own a small business. So not everyone, of course, but there's a lot of people that own a business. Maybe it's very informal. They're just selling some crafts on the side, or maybe it's more formal, like they're involved with network marketing, or maybe it's even more formal where they have formed a business entity. But regardless of that spectrum of formality, statistics suggest that about 1 out of 3 Americans either own a business or would like to if they had the knowledge and capital. So that's pretty good. That's about 100 million people. That's great. Now, some may just want to do it part-time, some may want to do it full-time, but regardless, we're talking about people. So there's lots of people, and about 1 out of 3 of the general population have an interest in owning a business, at least on a part-time basis. Most of those people need money, some desperately, some not so desperately, but just about, not all, but just about all people who are entrepreneurs or want to be need funding. The problem is most of them don't know what it takes to become fundable. So it's as if they're here standing and they're looking out forward and they just want to be there. But you don't get just from here to there. We're going to need to take steps. We're going to need to walk over there. And that's what you and I do. We educate people, don't we? We've talked about that. We educate people about what it takes to have a fundable business and to be able to access a lot of money. Again, we're talking about people. So the problem is if we just go tell people what we do, then they feel like it's a sales, they may feel like it's a sales pitch, and they may kind of turn off. So what is our recommended approach of how to better deal with people? Don't start by telling them what we do. Instead, ask them, hey, are you looking for funding to start or grow a business? Yes or no? If they say no, shake their hand, give them a hug, whatever you want to do, pat on the back, and walk away, because they don't have a problem for you to solve. But let's say that you ask someone, are you looking for funding to start or grow a business? And they say yes. Then what could we do? We could say, well, hey, you know what? I'm working with a 501c3 nonprofit. We've received a grant to help provide $250,000 or more to start or grow a business. What I'd love to do is take a few minutes and educate you about what it takes to have a fundable business and see if you qualify. My experience is that typically results in a more receptive audience rather than just kind of puking out all over them what we do. Now, what we do is real, it's valid, it's needed, but just we're working with people. So I would recommend opening up the conversation and then educating them. Now, the education could be formal, it could be informal, it could be in person, it could be online, it could be one-on-one, it could be small group, large group. That's up to you. You're the conduit to reach out to the marketplace, to reach out to the community. But what are we agreeing? People are complicated. People are often wrong. People can be suspicious. Like, oh, this is a scam. Look, there's absolutely nothing about what we do that even is on the border or fringe of being a scam. But when people don't know, they need to put something in a bucket, right? It's got to be red or blue. It must be red or blue. Well, no, it's purple. So treat people with love, treat people with respect, and educate them. Now, you'll have some people that are kind of a-holes, that are just not very nice. And I run into that daily. I don't care. I treat them with respect. If they can be mean to me, and I'll text them when I get up in the morning, good morning, and hope to engage in a conversation. Because anyone that understands what you and I do, if they're open-minded and logical, then they'll see the value. So with that, let's stop talking about people, which is important to what we do. But let's make sure that we understand what this is all about. So if you are a prospective participant, welcome. We'll show you how the grant works. If you're a current client, great. We'll still show you how it works. If you're one of our distribution partners, wonderful. We'll explain to you maybe how you could explain to others how it works so you could make some money by helping them. And lastly, if you're a prospective distribution partner, we'll help you, again, understand what we do. We do have grant resources here on chapmanloanprogram.org, and this is where you plug in if you're looking to be a distribution partner. Very simple. If you're looking to be a client, there's a two-step process, step 1, step 2. If you are a current distribution partner, you have 2 ways to engage clients, if you will. As we announced yesterday, you can just come in here and put the client's name, email, phone, referred by, and then submit them. And then our team will reach out to them. Let's take Brian, for example. And Brian, unfortunately, he's not on. I talked to him this morning, but he's not on the training yet, at least. But I think yesterday, Brian referred in 7 people. So he had opened some initial conversation with them. He's not really so good with contracts and technology, which is fine. So what Brian did is he just submitted them here, and then our team picked them up, closed them. And so Brian made $7,000 yesterday. Not a big deal, but there's a lot of people don't make $7,000 in a month. And Brian's running at, I don't know, probably around a 12th grade education, and he made $7,000 yesterday. Because if you are one of our distribution partners and you just simply refer them in, one of our team will reach out to them, educate them, get them engaged, and then you make $1,000 a pop. If you want to make more, then of course you can be one of our distribution partners. We'll get you all set up with the editable agreements and press releases, and you'll have a version of the PowerPoint that you can edit. You have everything kind of private label. And then if you actually get them under contract, then what happens is you make $1,250. So it's a $250 bonus, if you will, if you take care of that, or just do what Brian did. There's some people that need simple, either because of intellect or because of time or because of preference. And if that's the case, they can just refer them in here. They still make $1,000. But let's get to the meat of the matter. What is it we do? Because this isn't all about selling. This isn't about making money. It's about helping people. That's where we started. We are here to help people have what? A fundable business. Fundable business. You and I know the formula to have a fundable business, don't we? And that's what we teach. That's what we preach. That's what we help people with, is how to have a fundable business. We teach this at around a 10th grade level, because not everyone's as smart as you. Not everyone's as experienced as you. So we got to keep it simple. People want free, simple, and fast. Remember those 3 words: free, simple, and fast. If you can deliver free, simple, and fast, you can help a lot of people. All right, so let's get into free. So to have a fundable business, and remember, we talk about these being in order. This is relevant order. Instead of bullets, this could be number 1, number 2, number 3, and so forth. But you see the point. First thing that we do for free through the grant is provide them a good business address, a unique commercial business address. Of course, residential addresses aren't good. Shared addresses aren't good. Post office boxes aren't good. Now you say, well, Tom, the client already has a good address. Great, we skip it. We check that box and we move on. So we're going through the required list to have a fundable business. If the client already has one or more of these elements, fine. We skip that step. It just makes it go faster. So that's not an objection to keep someone from participating. Next, and I see Mr. Ward, you want me to give you a call. Mr. Ward, are you wanting me to call you right now while we're in this Zoom? Or do you want to just ask the question? Because we have the Q&A box, everyone. So if you have a question, you can type that in. But it would be kind of rough for me to stop the Zoom right now, Mr. Ward, and call you. Okay, so the first thing that we do is provide a free, unique business address. Second thing that we do is make sure that the client has an entity set up with the Secretary of State that's in good standing. If they don't have that, no problem. We do that and it's free. So that's correct. Client doesn't have to pay the Secretary of State filing fees. They don't have to pay administrative fees. Our grant is providing these things for free. But this isn't just about what the grant provides. This is a specific checklist to have a fundable business. So even if someone wanted nothing to do with you or me or the grant or the program, this is still what they would need, right? And that's what we're conveying down here in our educational message. This isn't a sales pitch. This is education, financial literacy 101. What does it take to have a fundable business? We need a good address. We need to be in good standing with Secretary of State. We need to have an EIN and a business bank account. And again, that again is free. Once we have these 3 items, now we have what we'll call a credible business. Don't confuse that with credit worthy, but we have a credible, a foundation of a real business. If you don't have those 3 things, we don't. So nothing else matters if you don't have those 3 items, just to be clear. Now, once we have those 3 items, and we can get all this done very quickly, usually within just a couple of days from them enrolling. Now we need to make the business legally and ethically credit worthy. Show that the business has a strong credit profile. So there's actually 2 steps involved with this, and I'll describe both. Again, if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, you'll go ahead and type it in. And again, please don't ask us to call you during the Zoom. That would be kind of dysfunctional. That's not the way this works. You would type your question or comment in, and then we would address it together. Okay, so now that we have a credible business, now we need to build the credit. 2 steps. First thing we're going to do is make sure that the profile of the business is optimized. Now, obviously, everything that we're talking about is legal and ethical. So first of all, rule out any concerns that we're going to do anything gray. Not going to do. As in terms of being a credible business, that means that in terms of having credit worthiness, the first thing we need to do is make sure that our profile, like Dun & Bradstreet and Experian Business, is complete and accurate. So everything is such as the address, making sure that the industry code is correct, the number of employees, and so forth. So that's how the world would see your business if they looked your business up on Dun & Bradstreet, Experian Business, or what have you. Well, why is that relevant? Well, if we're going to start applying for credit and eventually we're going to go after big money, they're going to look up the business, just like they would look at your credit report personally if you were trying to get a personal loan. That's not what we're doing, but they're going to look at the business credit report if we're trying to get business funding, which is what we're doing. So we want to have strong business credit. So once the profiles are optimized, which didn't take long at all, now we're going to start adding primary trade lines. Primary trade lines. Okay, I've got a number of you asking for things, so please reach out to us. Best thing to do is email us, support@chapmanloanprogram.org, and then we can get back with you. We've got 26 requests, it seems. So individualized requests we can't field on the fly here. Support@chapmanloanprogram. All right, so now we're going to add primary trade lines. Primary. We had a conversation about this yesterday. So real trade lines that can be used for the business. What are examples? We could get real estate under the EIN. We could get automobiles, or automobile singular or plural, under the business, a company car, in other words. We could get company credit cards under the EIN. There's lots of ways we can add trade lines, but we're talking about real trade lines, not pretend, not fake. I don't know how else to describe it. We would add real trade lines. And so it's credit that you can use, and also that builds the credit worthiness of the business. Make sense? And then our last step before we go to funding is making sure that we have strong financials. And so what we're going to do is build a balance sheet out for the business. If you're not familiar with balance sheets show assets and liabilities of the business. Now, talking about the individual, we're separating personal from business, right? So we weren't talking about personal credit, we were talking about business credit. We're not talking about personal financial statements, we're talking about business financial statements, called a balance sheet. So what we do is we provide quick cash. Quick cash is specifically a $10,000 allocation that we immediately transfer over, put on the business's balance sheet, and bam, now we have collateral for funding. That's one of the requirements to get funding, is to have collateral. That's where a lot of small businesses come up short. Either they don't have financials, or their financials look kind of shaky, or they just don't have collateral. Since we know that that's often an issue, we built that in. So yes, we provide $10,000, real assets, real. Put them on the balance sheet. Those are in the form of receivables. Then we can turn around and help the client or the participant liquidate those receivables if they desire, turn that into cash in their business bank account. So once we have a fundable business, then what do we want to do? We want to go to funding. Of course, there's many places we can go to funding with a fundable business. Sometimes this is where the biggest disconnect is. They think, well, what's the bank you use? We can work pretty much with any bank or lender that offers business funding with it, because we have a fundable business. You see, that's the prerequisite. Once we have that, then one of the preferred locations or sources of funding is the Chapman Fund, set up originally as a grant. It has several positive attributes, easier to get, so forth, but it's not all chocolates and roses, as we say. The major limitation of the Chapman Fund is it caps at $250,000. So if that's a problem for the client, no worries. We can do the Chapman Fund first and then layer on other types of funding afterwards. We could skip the Chapman Fund. They could go through the process multiple times for multiple businesses, but this is one example of funding that is very attractive. So in the end, our 501c3 nonprofit can help your business get positioned for funding with no risk, and we do it quickly. People usually ask, no one's asked today, usually people ask, well, how long does this take? 30 to 60 days. Then usually someone will say, well, that's too long. Well, if you already have some of these elements, then we can fast track it, of course, but it's about a 30 to 60 day process normally. Then usually someone will say, well, that's too long. I need funding right away. No problem. So we can get you plugged in, which is a two-step process here. And then if we need to go ahead and get some funding even before the business is built out, we can do so. And again, we're very transparent. Here is the link to do that. And it's a simple one-page app. I'll click on it for you. It'll pop up. And it's a simple one-page app. Business information and key person, which means business owner. Now, if we don't have some of this, it's okay. All of this is optional. If there's an asterisk, it's required. So, of course, we need the personal information, the business information. If we have it, that's great. If not. But the bottom line is, even before this 30 to 60 day process, if we need funding sooner, that's fine. We can do so. So let me wrap up my spiel, and then we'll get over to your questions, comments, concerns. As far as grant resources, the first one is to enroll as a client. Frankly, that's the same as this. Here for the financing, which we just talked about. Here to register for the daily live Zooms, like we're doing right now. Here, as we've talked several times about the full educational message. So if you want to help us, which we ask you, we plead with you to please consider coming aboard and helping us teach. Sure, you'll make extra income, but maybe what's most important is the fact that you're able to help people. Our typical referral partner will teach 1 or 2 workshops a month, but you could teach more. You could do them online or in person, small group or large group. You're generating $1,250 for each person that you teach that goes through and plugs into the grant. So it's not get rich quick, but you teach a 1-hour workshop on a Saturday morning for 10 people. Normally you'll have about 85 to 87% of the people that you teach enroll. Well, that would be, let's say, 8 or 9 out of 10. So sure, you can make a nice side gig, but it's really not about money, but helping people. Funding success stories, and then we've covered a few times, this is how to plug in as a distribution partner. So with that being said, if you need to reach us, phone and emails here. If any of you have questions, comments, concerns on what we've covered, go ahead and type it now into the Q&A. It's like a chat box, question and answer box of Zoom, and we'll cover it. But some of you, like Mr. Ward and Ms. Martin, you're asking questions that are outside the scope of today's Zoom. So please reach out to us so we can help you afterwards. So what are we missing? We've started by talking about people. People are amazing, but they can be complicated. Sometimes they can be irrational. Sometimes they can be illiterate. Sometimes they can be abrasive. Some are just flat out mean. But regardless, we want to treat people with respect. We want to treat them with love, and we want to educate. And if we educate, we'll be able to help on average 85 to 87% of the people that we educate. So is it 100%? If you taught a class of 100 people, would 100 people say, yeah, I want to participate in the grant, I want my $250,000? No, that's too good to be true. But on average, 85 to 87% will, which is not bad, right? There's a lot of people. We can set up classes with churches, chambers, apartment complexes, community centers. There's so many places, business organizations that we can go out and collaborate with to teach. If you're not really into teaching, that's okay. You don't have to, but you can see that the financial literacy is a very important piece. It's okay if you're not a nonprofit. We are. We will provide you great resources. We'll provide you an editable version of the proposal, which you can view here. We'll provide you an editable version of the press release that you can customize for your branch. We'll provide you an editable version of the client agreement. We'll provide you an editable version of the PowerPoint. We're here to support you. It's incredible. Jeffrey's asking, how do I establish a business address? Has everything but the business address portion. Well, that's great that you asked. Let me actually show you. So let me go over here. If someone just needs only the address, we have a different resource site called cheapbusinessaddress.com. You can go to cheapbusinessaddress.com, click here, and you can get just the address. So actually, Cheap Business Address provides the first bullet and the last bullet alone. So if that's all someone wants, Cheap Business Address, they can get the first bullet and the last bullet on cheapbusinessaddress.com. Great question, Jeffrey. All right, Herman's asking, can you be a distribution partner and not a client? And conversely, can you be a client and not a distribution partner? Sure. It's like two sides of the coin, Herman. It's up to you. If what you're wanting to do is teach and make money, then come do it. If what you're wanting is funding for your business idea, then do that. Some people do both. Some people do neither, of course. It doesn't really matter to us, but it's not MLM, it's not network marketing, there's no required purchases, none of that nonsense. All right, so who else has questions, comments, concerns that I can cover today? All right, Mr. Johnson asks, do we offer in-person training? We did before the pandemic, and then we backed off of it because no one wanted to get together during COVID, but we are looking at reestablishing that. We've talked about that before, didn't have much momentum, but we are looking at that again. Here's what we're thinking, Mr. Johnson. We'll pay for your flight in. You'll fly in Friday. We'll get together starting at 3 p.m. on Fridays, go from 3 p.m. until the evening. We'll feed you, of course. We'll put you up in a hotel Friday night. We'll get back together Saturday. We'll start early Saturday morning, not too early, but early. Finish by 3 p.m. Saturday. So if you want to fly out Saturday evening, you could do so. We're right next to the airport. American Airlines flies in and out. So that's what we're considering doing for those of you that want in-person training. So of course that would be free. You wouldn't have to pay for that. So that's what's on the table being considered as we go into 2024. All right. Well, with that, I think we covered a lot. I mean, at this point, it's really about you. It's about you going and applying this knowledge. If you're looking at funding to start or grow a business, come over here to ChapmanLoanProgram.org and engage. If you're looking at getting paid to teach others, to help others, come over to ChapmanLoanProgram.org and use this bottom link. If you need individualized assistance, you know our phone number. It's answered live. Right now, our phones are answered live Mondays through Fridays, office hours. We have applied for an expanded grant that would allow us to staff 24/7, because we get calls at 3 in the morning where people expect a response. So we are working towards, not there yet, operating 24/7, 365. But we need to get the grant expanded, and if that's approved, then we need to staff it. But you can call us. If we miss it, we'll call you back, and email. Again, we work with people. People are complicated. People are unique. People are wonderful. So you have to come into this with a spirit of giving and a desire to help people. If you have that, we would love to work with you. We could make a difference in other people's lives. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.